Good morning. Welcome to the show Coffee Time with Torossian CPA. Hope you're starting your day with nice and rock energetic music. Woohoo!
Yep.
Woohoo! All right, guys. Well, if you are returning to our show, welcome back, guys. If you are new to us, give us a hands up or a thumbs up in the chat so we know you are new. Of course, if you are just listening in, we know we can't do that. But please like and share, subscribe to the page or the channel that you are listening to us on, so you can make sure that you get alerts when we do schedule to go live anytime. And which we do that every Thursday at 10 o'clock Eastern times in the morning on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on our YouTube channel. I'm your host, Marie Torossian, CFO, auditor, certified public accountant, chartered global management accountant, and recently certified 10X coach. I use my proprietary methodology, Valuation MT, to help business owners that reach their first million to 10X their profits. I also have an e-course that matches that methodology for those who haven't reached their first million, to kind of help guide them through the process of what it takes to get to that. So you can get those programs on my website, theprofitlab.biz/programs. I am also the author of a couple of books, The Complete Guide to Business Growth and The Business Owner's Guide to Operational Accounting. And you can get those books and you can read them. Let me know what you think. And you can get those on theprofitlab.biz/shop. As always, I'm joined in with my friend and my tax colleague, Pedro Gonzalez, CPA. Good morning, Pedro.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Marie. Pedro Gonzalez, your business and tax strategist, helping our clients improve their cash flow. Cash flow, as I said many times, is the lifeblood of any business, regardless of size and industry. Helping our clients with tax minimization strategies. Taxation, as we know, erodes wealth. And with exit strategies, all of us are going to exit. It just depends on how we're going to exit. So we are here to help you in developing strategies that are going to help you achieve your financial success. I'm going to keep my presentation introduction short because we have something a surprise for everybody, and so I'm going to keep it short. and I hope that everybody's doing well.
Awesome. Yes, we do. We do have a special, and I'm going to keep some of the usual stuff we kind of review short. You guys know that we've been doing this. This is our 54th episode, so we've put out so much material out there. So please, I ask you to, if you have anything in mind that you're thinking about, go back and check some of the episodes. We've talked about so much information on audits, IRS, taxes, tax planning, investor visa, business valuations. We've talked about so many things, so you can always go back, especially on the YouTube channel. It's so easy to search over there. So go ahead and check out those. So I don't want to take too much of time because this is a special thing I really have to tell you. So, but I do want to say, as an introduction, last week we specifically talked about hurricane disasters and insurance claims and how that affects your taxes, what is deductible, what is not deductible.
Sure.
And we kind of mentioned to you guys how important it is to have an attorney that is specifically knowledgeable in this area to help you and guide you through this process. And because we really, really, really are committed to helping you, we have a very special guest today. We have Matt Gelber, Esquire. He is a first-party property damage attorney representing homeowners and policyholders who suffer damage to their properties, and they need assistance dealing with their insurance claims process. Through his many years of experience, Matt has developed a very aggressive litigation style, which allows him to zealously advocate for his clients' needs. And with that, guys, welcome Matt Gelber, Esquire. Matt, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. We're so excited. We definitely need it. And this is the whole show is all about helping business owners and individuals alike, to guide them through any kind of tax, business, and other strategies. And a lot of times, attorneys are our best friends because we do have to help each other here to help business owners and individuals. So we're so happy to have you here. So before we get started to deep information about the claims process, tell us a little bit more about you, Matt Gelber, the person.
Sure. Well, Matt Gelber, the person, I like watching sports and, hanging with friends and my dog, Riley. Other than that, traveling, I DJ as a hobby, but
Cool.
I haven't found too much time to do that lately because, it's taking over.
Well, it's good to have some kind of a hobby that can kind of help you clear your mind. I'm sure being an attorney, just like when we are doing accounting, it can get very overwhelming. It's a lot of, serious work. So, you need something to kind of clear your mind sometimes. And music is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, last week, Matt, we really honed in mostly on the how to handle, the insurance claims from a, accounting and tax side. And today, we were wondering if you can explain kind of the difference between homeowners insurance claim and a flood claim. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Sure, of course. And that's a great question. And, this is a new avenue we're having to navigate with this storm because of all of the flood and the storm surge that's been happening. Essentially, your homeowner's insurance policy does not cover flood. It's something totally separate. In fact, the flood coverage is run through a federal program called the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program. That's federally regulated through FEMA. Whereas the homeowners insurance, for the most part, those are, private for-profit companies, with the exception of Citizens, that's a government entity. And so there's sometimes some overlap. Some homeowners policies do offer flood coverage, but for the most part, that's excluded and it's something totally different.
Interesting.
Got it.
That's very interesting. No, it's a good point to clarify because a lot of people, again, make assumptions that they think the insurance already comes with. Many times people don't realize what actually the insurance policy covers. So that was a good clarification.
Yeah, and when so if I was, let's say, the person and I have all these different insurances, which I know a lot of people go through. So how would they know when to file and which one to file, and how do they go about figuring out which one do I use? I think that's why everybody. I don't handle the insurance stuff. I leave it to my husband.
And it's a very complicated big thing to figure out, even for attorneys and public adjusters. We're here trying to navigate these things, and we're the professionals that do this every day for a living. The best advice that I would give, other than contacting a professional like a public adjuster or an attorney to help you, would be if you have a policy with flood coverage and you have a homeowner's policy, if you're not sure what is covered, the best thing to do is probably just file a claim on both. Start that claim process, let them go out there and figure out, they may say, well, some of this is covered, but the rest is your homeowners, and vice versa. And they may end up being wrong, but the duty for both policies as a homeowner or a policyholder is that you're supposed to promptly report these damages. And, you may not know whether or not these damages exceed your deductible, or you may not know, is this flood or is this homeowners? And those are valid points. But unfortunately, these policies end up being contracts that you enter into with the company that gives you that coverage. And so the duties in these policies require you to promptly report the damages. So they don't really care whether or not you think it exceeded your deductible or not, or that you thought this was all a flood or vice versa.
Understood. And by the way, guys, if you see me looking down sometimes, I'm trying to make sure that I respond to anything coming in through the chats. If there's any questions, by the way, guys, those of you watching, listening on whichever platform, please go ahead, put in some questions, and then Matt will answer, and I'll read it out to Matt, okay?
Perfect.
Awesome.
So, Matt, can you walk us through kind of the insurance claim process?
Sure. So, generally speaking, if you have a homeowner's policy with an in-state company, meaning a local for-profit company, or even an out-of-state company that's not a surplus carrier, and I'll explain the difference in that in a second. Generally speaking, once you report the claim, the insurance company has 90 days to inspect, adjust, and make a determination on your claim. Now,
Mm,
sometimes there are factors that prevent them from doing it within 90 days. um, Generally speaking, when you have a large loss like this, like a hurricane, they bring in what's called cat adjusters, like category adjusters, which are kind of
mm,
like emergency temporary people that come from all over the country. And they're here to help speed up that process because, as you can imagine, they have to inspect all these claims. Every time someone reports a claim, it has to be inspected. And so, they're trying to speed up the process or add additional manpower to speed that along. But if they are asking for additional time outside of those 90 days, they're required to send you correspondence before the 90 days to let you know why it is they can't make a determination yet and what else they're missing to allow them to figure it out. And that's for the homeowners process. Now, for the flood policies, because they're run through FEMA and federal government, programs, they have a lot more strict standards. So for a flood claim, you have 60 days after the flood occurs to submit your proof of loss form in order for them to process the claim and get that going. Now, that being said, the government, because of they understand the devastation, and some people can't even get access to their homes right now because of the flooding. They've actually extended that deadline to a full year, 365 days. But going back to what I said earlier about promptly reporting your loss, that doesn't take away from the time that you have to promptly report it. So in other words, just because you have that full 365 days, and Florida statutes allow you to report a hurricane loss with homeowners up to 2 years after it occurs, I wouldn't recommend you wait that full period because it just causes additional hurdles in the claims process.
Very good. Now, and this is a question. I know that you and I talked about this in the past, but then how long does somebody have to make a claim? Um,
So, just like I said, with the homeowner's policy, you have 2 years to report the claim to insurance.
okay.
But what we've seen on the litigation side,
Mhm.
um, and is that the longer you wait, the more the insurance company claims that they were prejudiced. And
mm,
some of it may be true. I mean, the law used to give you 3 years to report a hurricane claim. And so what happened after Hurricane Irma, which was in September of 2017, is we would see homeowners reporting claims in like 2019 or early 2020. And the question, playing devil's advocate here, it's how are you able to say 2.5 years later that this damage is from Hurricane Irma? And so
right,
they kind of tighten that window down to 2 years. But for example, if we have another storm, or as living in South Florida, we do have rainy season around April to
true.
June ish. And so the more your roof or your property gets hit with all these additional storms and additional damages, it makes it harder later on to send an engineer or some sort of expert to say, well, all this damage being claimed with certainty was caused by Hurricane Ian. And
Right.
so,
I think that makes sense because then we're like, and it might have that delay effect too. So, it's like, how do I have to call someone every single time there was like if we're getting, let's say, 5 different tropical storms and one hurricane, like how can I pinpoint with how many times or which one caused
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
which damage? It can become very difficult. Yeah, that makes total sense. Um, absolutely.
so
Yeah.
it's always best practice, if you think you have a claim, to report it. Now, that being said, there are things that a professional public adjuster can do or a professional attorney can do, like reviewing your coverages. For example, you all have certain deductibles. They have like an all other perils deductible, which basically means anything other than a hurricane. And then they have hurricane deductibles. And based on when you got your policy, you were able to choose whether you wanted a 1%, a 2%, or a 5%, or even a 10% deductible, which basically means that's the percentage of your coverage that you pay upfront, or not upfront, but when you have a claim as a deductible. which, the higher your deductible is, the lower your premiums are. So some people try to backload the deductible thinking, oh, I'll deal with it later, to save that money on the premium side. And now you're stuck with these large deductibles. And so going back to what I said before about some homeowners waiting to report a claim because they don't know if it exceeds their deductible. Now, that's a conversation you should have with a public adjuster or an attorney who can review your policy. They can look at your damages and tell you, look, you do have hurricane damage, but it's probably only 8 to 10 grand, and you have an $11,000 deductible. So all that's going to happen is you're going to report this claim and you're not going to get paid. So, in that case, you can talk to them about your options, about just maybe fixing it out of pocket. Because what I'm sure you guys are all aware of is these insurance companies are going out of business. They're pulling out of Florida. We're having some sort of insurance crisis going on right now. And so these insurance companies are also trying to look for ways to avoid the risk. And so if somebody's filing a bunch of claims on their home, eventually you reach a point where you become uninsurable. And so they may drop you from that policy. And so despite the fact that you do have this damage, if it's not going to exceed your deductible, you may be better off just paying for that damage out of pocket and avoiding that down the line. But again, I don't think that's something that you should be figuring out on your own. That should be something you're engaging with a public adjuster or an attorney to kind of talk to you about those options.
That's just really good.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very serious thing. I mean, you just mentioned that. I didn't even realize that yet. And you just said something that just scared me. I'm like, if a lot of insurance companies pull out and homeowners or business owners are just now cannot really get an insurance, and all these damages are now going to fall on the individual or the business owner to dish out, that's a lot of money every time you get hit.
Well, I do want to clarify something. So, I mean, let's just say, God forbid, that the insurance company that you have on your home goes out of business, or just goes bankrupt. There's a program. I'm pretty sure every state has it, but in Florida, it's called FIGA, which is the Florida Insurance Guarantee Association. And essentially, in every person's premiums, you actually pay a little surcharge that goes towards those FIGA, assessments. And what FIGA does is they're kind of like a resort, a last resort. So let's say, for example, your insurance company goes out of business, you have an open claim, you're dealing with that process. FIGA will step in and they'll review the claim, they'll review the damages you have, and they'll kind of determine whether or not it's covered. So there is some sort of like last resort if that does happen, but FIGA is not really built to, fight claims and pay claims in full. And so you're kind of bound by like, this is what FIGA decided, and it's almost like a take it or leave it. There are some, exceptions to that. So it's not like I have this policy, they go out of business, now I get nothing, but you definitely have a lot less options than if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Understood. That's good to know. I'm sure this is information I mean, I didn't know this.
Yeah, no, that's really good to know that there's still, like you said, another option, like a final, in case of, God forbid, the company goes under, leave the state or something like that. Now, Matt, what can somebody? Again, we recently went through the situation of Ian, but outside in general, casualties in general, what is it that you recommend a family or a business owner that is having a casualty? And I guess a prudent practice. I mean, what should you do in the meantime, while between, let's say, the event, the date of the event, and the time, let's say, it's gonna get inspected? What is it that you recommend either a family or business owner to do?
Well, pretty much every single insurance policy creates a duty or an obligation on the policyholder to protect the property from getting worse or mitigate the damages. So depending on what kind of claim you have, maybe it's an AC leak or maybe like a pipe explodes or something like that, you're required to stop that leak or stop the damage from getting worse. Let's say it's a roof leak, you should put a tarp on your roof. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, because the insurance company, if they want to, and believe me, I see it a lot on the litigation side, it's kind of like no matter what you do, you're not complying with the policy. And what I mean by that is, if you mitigate the damages and you do some sort of permanent repair, like let's say, for example, you have a supply line underneath your kitchen sink that continues to leak until you either turn off the water or you fix that pipe, that's going to keep bringing damages. So you should turn off the water main and then call somebody to replace the pipe. Now, once you replace the pipe, now you've altered the condition of what it was in. And so now the insurance company, if they want to, can say, well, we were prejudiced because we didn't get the ability to look at it in its original state. But if you leave it as is and you don't mitigate those damages, then they're going to say, well, you failed to mitigate the damages. So in an ideal world, while you're trying to navigate how to comply with your policy, again, it's always best to talk to one of these professionals like a public adjuster or an attorney, because we know how to best navigate the situation. And what I would say is, if you do begin repairs, take photos and videos before you do anything. If you have some plumber or some sort of professional replace a part, keep that damaged item, because without that damaged item, they'll say, well, we never got to inspect it, so we don't know if the damages are the way that you said it were. And taking it a step back, even before you have a loss, it's really good, maybe a couple times a year, to just do a complete walkthrough of your home. Take photos and videos, especially underneath the sink, anywhere there's plumbing. Document underneath the kitchen sink, cabinets, in the bathroom, the showers, by the windows, the doors, everything that could be a source of water entry. Because insurance companies love to claim, improper maintenance, or this was long term, this pre-exists before we even insured this property. And the best way for us to fight that, aside from having to hire an engineer, which isn't always even a guarantee, because then it comes down to, well, our engineer says this and their engineer says that, is if you have this time-stamped evidence that shows, as of the date I took this video or I took this photo, this is how my property was. So it narrows down that time span of when this damage accrued. And I can't tell you how many times I'm having to fight over this issue in litigation, because just because my clients don't have the videos or the photos, I mean, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen the way they're saying it did, but it's just an additional hurdle that I have to try to prove to the insurance company is how it said it is. And if ultimately they don't believe us, we end up having to gear up, going to trial, explaining to a jury that this is the way that it said it was. So obviously you want to avoid all of that stuff. And so the best practice is to have this additional ammunition that you can provide to them during the whole claims process.
That was wow.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. There are many things that we don't realize. I like the idea of you saying for example, the video, because that can show kind of the conditions even before, and you can create a history. That's a great idea, because like you said, if you go and make a repair, yeah, I can see why the insurance company will say, well, but I didn't get a chance to, or I don't know exactly what the damage was. So I understand the position, why would they take that stand? But it is interesting, you know what I mean? Because this is the kind of information that is important to have, because sometimes, in addition to what we just went through with Ian, is that we have casualties throughout other events, you know what I mean, that affects our homes, our businesses. So this is not only relevant to hurricanes, is when we're talking about casualties, it's a year-round situation that we need to be aware how to handle that, and who to call, because many times, again, we're dealing. I know we were talking about just recently, is we're signing is a contract. So handling that contractual agreement, and every contract, there's going to be responsibilities and duties and so on. So understanding how, and most of us are not qualified to understand what we unfortunately signed. I mean, we're not qualified. We sign it, but many times try to interpret that contractual agreement. So that's why it's important that we have people like Matt that can understand and help us understand what is it that we're either about to sign, or what is it that we signed, so then we can see exactly what we're getting into.
And not just that, but additionally, I always recommend right before the start of hurricane season. And honestly, even now, I mean, the season's still not over, but God forbid, if we look like we're going to get another storm, do a complete walkthrough of your house inside and out. If you're not comfortable going up on your roof, hire somebody. Even if you take a drone, get the footage of your roof right before a storm comes, because many times the insurance company will say, well, this is wear and tear, or this is foot traffic, or this is thermal expansion and contraction, which basically means when the sun hits down on it, it expands, and then when the sun goes down, it contracts, and that continual cyclical pressure kind of causes damage. It's all just a way to kind of avoid claims or paying claims. And so again, especially with a hurricane, I mean, most people don't go on their roofs. So how can you prove that this damage is there on this date, but it wasn't there before? So that's kind of, I always recommend that going into hurricane season. But you can apply that logic to your whole home. And another thing, kind of segueing into talking about the flood damage from Ian, but just talking generally as well. You should do that with all your contents, your clothing, your jewelry, all the stuff that you have inside your house, because if it gets flooded, maybe it's washed away, because on the West Coast, there was literally like 5 feet of storm surge that went inside people's homes. My aunt in Orlando, she had 3 inches of water that went inside her house. And so all of this stuff becomes damaged. And if you have to throw it away, or it just gets washed away or destroyed, you'll fill out a contents form where you say what the item was and when you purchased it and what you paid. But, then they'll ask for receipts and all these other things. At least if you have the documentation that shows that you had these things, it's there to help you as well.
Yeah, I don't think we do. We usually, we buy the stuff, after a while we throw away the receipts, and we're not really thinking about, tracking all of these stuff. So which brings me to another question just popped in my head when you were saying that, Matt, is like, so should we, as whether homeowners or business owners, whatever we have, should we do a kind of a listing of everything we have, and then kind of have someone like you review our policies and see if it's a proper coverage on whatever we have? Because, let's say we threw away a couch that was now old, and now we got a couch that's a lot more expensive, whatever it is, like whatever it was. Or we got new, it's a business owner that now just got, brand new copy machine that is $5,000, I don't know, $10,000. So is that what is it that you recommend that we do?
Well, so first of all, one of the things that my firm offers is free policy review. So basically, you don't even have to retain my services for this feature. You can kind of just send me your full policy. I'll take a look at your coverages. Many times, I mean, if you have a good insurance agent, they should be asking you these questions to kind of increase or decrease coverages that may not apply to you. But unfortunately, when a loss occurs at your home, whether it be a hurricane or a pipe or an AC, whatever, you're stuck with those coverages that you have at the time of the loss. And so, I've had clients where they have significant damages and the insurance company wants to pay it, but maybe they have like a $20,000 limit. And so they write them a $20,000 check and they say, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. And, unfortunately, there's not. So I definitely recommend you either speak with, an attorney or a public adjuster or even your insurance agent, and talk to them about certain things that you may have at your home that maybe they didn't ask you, or maybe they don't realize that you have. In regards to your question about looking at contents and things like that, yeah, I mean, I think that it's good practice when you buy something that's of value to you, scan the receipt and save it on your hard drive or keep it somewhere handy. You can send it to your accountant because I'm sure they can keep records like that somewhere. But
thank you, Matt.
We didn't make him say that. He just said that.
Exactly.
No, but in all seriousness, you should keep those kind of receipts handy. Yes. Because I mean, yeah, keeping like a hard copy, like a file of all that stuff is great. But what happens if a storm comes and all of a sudden that file is not destroyed? So that can just be all your work is in one place and now it's disintegrated. Also, in addition to that, your homeowner's insurance policy has these things called special limits, and they basically define certain items. Like, for example, jewelry has a special limit. If you have cash on hand that's stolen or lost or something, that has a special limit. And so if you're a female that has a lot of handbags, or if you have expensive jewelry, or like a male with nice watches, you either need to try to increase that coverage or go with another company that kind of specializes in those types of things to add that coverage, because more often than not, these things are limited. And for example, I'll give you a little quick story. I represented a client he was a professional photographer, and he had his professional camera stuff stolen from his house. And so the insurance company, they made some small payment, and then I had to get involved, and we couldn't work it out before I had to file the lawsuit. And in litigation, they kind of worked with us and they said, listen, unfortunately, we realized that he had X amount in equipment, but he only has this much in coverage. And you can hire the best attorney in the world, but they can't get you in addition to that. There are some circumstances where they could on something called bad faith, but that's a whole other story. But generally speaking, you're stuck with the coverages that you have. And so that's why even if there's no claim or no loss that you have right now, it's important to talk to somebody about the coverages you have and the items that you're concerned with, so that if something happens, you're not stuck.
This is great. This is great information. And I wish in a way, like, well, that some of our insurance agents, like once they get the policy for us, that they would actually actively follow up and then just come back and say, hey, let's do this. There's sometimes it's like sell the policy and then no service after. And, and that's why we need people like you to help us out, go through the motions and say, okay, this is enough coverage or not. And you just gave me a bunch of ideas.
And one more quick tip I'll piggyback off of on that. Like, let's say, for example, you do some sort of renovation in your backyard. Maybe you make like an outdoor kitchen. Maybe you add new pavers, or you upgrade the fence. Those are things you should be reaching out to your insurance agent about. Be like, hey, I just spent X amount. Can you tell me what my coverages are? Because let's just say, for example, something comes and it knocks down the whole fence, or it destroys it, so you can't repair it and you have to replace it. And they're going by what the fence was you had before you upgraded it. So
right.
No matter what, that's the best you can get, is what your limits are. So these are conversations every time you're doing something to your house. It's just good practice to talk to your agent. Hey, I just did this. Is this going to change? Maybe they'll say, no, you're still good. But maybe they'll say, okay, we need to upgrade that. So those are good tips to have, as a homeowner.
Oh, this is great. You just gave me so many ideas. Like, because we've probably done so much renovations and upgrades in our house since we bought it. I don't think we have upped anything since then. It's just going to go and start a list now.
So as far as how can, especially the people that are listening, because, how can they get a hold of you, man?
Yes.
Well, they can reach out to me by email or by phone. My email is going across the banner on the bottom. It's matt@gelberlawgroup.com. My office number is 954-320-0100. I'm always available for, free consultations, or if you just want to pick my brain about something, or like I said, if you want me to look at your policy and take a look at what you have, I'm always available.
Awesome. It was a pleasure having you here, Matt. This has been great information. Not only did we learn, but we also brought it to all of our audience as well. And please, guys, make sure to reach out to Matt if you have any more questions and something more on a one-on-one specifically to you. These were more general information, but each of us have our own situation. So make sure to reach out to Matt so he can give you very specific information for you and your family.
Can I just give one more plug?
Absolutely, sir.
So if people, especially on the West Coast, if you're dealing with a lot of issues where you're not sure where to begin, and maybe you don't want to call a public adjuster or an attorney yet, and that's perfectly fine. There's an association I'm a part of called the Florida Association of Public Insurance Adjusters, or FAPIA, and they created this campaign called BeClaimSmart.com. And so you can go on there. If you have any contractors going door to door asking, do you need help? Can I help fix your roof? Or can I do all this stuff? Be very wary before you sign any contracts with them, because the only two types of people that can help you adjust your claim are licensed public adjusters and attorneys. And so on BeClaimSmart.com, you can look up the contractor's info to see if they're actually licensed. You can also look up the public adjuster to see if they're a FAPIA member. And you want to be very weary. I understand that people are very desperate for help, and people are coming across and pretending, or hopefully not pretending, but they're telling them that we can help you. You don't want to sign those contracts right away. You want to do your research. And so I did want to put that tip out there, because the last thing we want to see right now in a time of need, when people need it, are for people to be taken advantage of.
Absolutely. And what I did is I put it in the comments, guys, BeClaimSmart.com. So those who are, watching us, and they'll be able to see, and it will stay on the video, especially I think on YouTube, it'll stay on there.
It's one S, BeClaimSmart.
Oh, let me read. Okay. BeClaims. Okay. One S. Sorry, guys.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, awesome. So as we close out, if there's any more questions from those who are watching us, let us know. I'll just wait a few seconds if there's any questions for Matt now. If not, I'll wrap up the show. As always, we are always excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This was great.
It was really
Awesome.
good. Really good. Really informative.
Very informative. I'm telling you, I'm going to go home sometime between this weekend and next weekend. I'm going to start making the lists of everything we've done in the last 3 years, especially. Definitely when you said the fence, we did the fence. We changed the windows. I think 5 years ago we got a hurricane, special windows. And I mean, we've done so many upgrades. Yes.
Well, additionally, with the hurricane-proof, building materials, you can get like wind mitigation credits and things like that. So you definitely want to look into that because that can save you some money on your.
Actually, help you reduce.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and start listing. I'm going to go, okay, honey, what did we do? Let's list it out, and I'm going to send you everything that we have. So.
There you go.
Awesome. All right, so there's no other questions coming in. All right, so I guess we're wrapping the show. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, listening to the show. Thank you for being part of our community here on Coffee Time with Marie Torossian CPA. I want to leave you with the quote from motivation speaker, as always, Jim Rohn. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I hope today we were 3 of the 5 people you were spending your time with to learn and grow your business and protect yourself. So until next episode, have a wonderful and blessed rest of your week.
Wonderful. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Morning.